universe. Who's back? It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Scavarna and the Douche talk, masters of the universe. The Legends of Grayskull podcast.
Legends of Grayskull is a fan podcast exploring the vast worlds of He-Man and She-Ra. Join Shawn Scavarna and Matthew Douche as they discuss the history and mystery of Eternia and Eternia, diving deep into all incarnations of Masters of the Universe.
Hey, you know who's back? It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Now that you know, let's go. Get ready for the show. It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Legends of Grayskull, the fan podcast where we discuss the history, the mystery, the magic, and mythology of He-Man, She-Ra, Eternia, Theory, and Order of Primus, new adventures, old adventures, Ladybird UK annuals, comics, mini-comics, anything and everything you can think of with that Masters of the Universe, Princess of Power, that Scavarna artwork!
It finally happened.
Right in the middle of the screen.
It finally happened.
That's right, folks. We have official artwork logo for Legends of Grayskull, done by the immensely talented Shawn Scavarna.
Extremely late, but it's here.
It's here. It's here. And I'm gonna actually remove both of us for a second here so that people can gaze on it. Audio listeners, sorry, it's gonna be silent for a minute. That is that beautiful character that Shawn created as a representation of our show. Now we need to name him. So if you guys out there, hopefully after we're done recording this episode, I can convince Shawn to actually publicly share it because he hasn't yet, surprisingly.
I have been very tight-lipped because I figured we are doing it on here versus me just throwing it out there to the wind. So now that this is like the official, like last episode, I did put it out there, and when I shared our episode, saying, "Hey, you might want to watch the intro. There's a little something different. Yeah, there's a little something different this time around."
Yep, I just kind of snuck it in there. We didn't make a big deal about it.
Yeah. So this, I figured once we put it out there on the show officially, then I'll do it because this has been a way long time in the making, and it only seemed fair to do it on the show first. So
we appreciate it's wonderful artwork, and guys, if you've got any thoughts when Shawn shares out there, you can gaze at a little bit. Thoughts on names? Let us know. You know, maybe we'll roll something up. Maybe we'll do a little naming contest. That could be.
Yeah, I think that could
be fun. Any host of Legends of Grayskull or Off-World, I would have to say, can't participate.
Yeah, we're out of the running because he can't be the Legend Daddy. We'll just put it that way. There's already 4 of those guys.
No, I don't want Curtis getting credit for anything else.
Well, that's
so we got it. That's why I want to expand the umbrella there. So.
Technically, that would have been Will White, though. Billy Beige, because he was the one.
No, I just mean Curtis. I'm trying to find a way to make Curtis ineligible.
Oh, gotcha. Well, he's already ineligible because he's on Off-World.
That's what I'm saying.
But,
so
exactly.
Any of our shows, except for Jesse. Jesse can participate.
He's the sunny one.
I'll let him participate. Oh, we should probably cut all this. But yes, we are back. It is episode 108. We are cruising right along. Shawn, how you doing today?
I am doing better than I thought I would. I told Matt on a personal level I had one of the first migraines in a long time. I've had it last night. So that required quite a lot of sleep on my part. But I am here and I'm feeling better. And I'm ready to talk to the Masters of the Universe. How about you, Matt?
I'm doing
How
good.
Are you?
I am here.
Good.
Talk Masters as well. We'll get into. Well, we are going to be reviewing the Mike Young Productions episode, The Snake Pit, in a little bit here. and I'm really excited for that. It's been a hot minute, but we'll get into all of that. So, but yeah, stay tuned. We're gonna get there. It's gonna be great. But before that, Mattel actually Mattel's been very friendly with our recording schedule. They're really trying to help us out here. They've been giving us the exclusive, the exclusive heads up on some stuff. It's worked out very nicely. So about 15 minutes ago now, so about 7 minutes before we started recording, they did share that on October 12th, we will find out what the next Masters of the Universe crowdfund project will be. And you will have to check out the Mattel Creations YouTube channel for that. So, as you guys recall, that was the fan vote between the Attack Track Filmation version, Zodak's Tank from the Filmation series, the Doom Tower, which is the Filmation Fright Zone, the Vintage Toy Fright Zone, and the Axel Jimenez neo-vintage playset concept for the Snakemen. So, yeah. Stay tuned for that. I do find it interesting, though. They definitely say now, though, that we are getting one of those, even though they allowed you to vote 2.
Mm-hmm.
It specifically says here the next. So, for all we know, they're eventually getting to the mall as long as it keeps selling. I mean, we still don't really know. I think it was just kind of to gauge the interest, and maybe they'll move right down the list, and in a couple years' time, we'll have all 5 of those.
If the line keeps going, I mean, so the distribution wise, it is going to Mattel Creations.
Hang on, let me close this. Let me make a
the Filmation ones are going to
so to finish out their origins.
To finish out the origin, the vintage stuff,
they're going there, but then Filmation origins will be in stores.
They're going to be on the peg,
which 3 out of the 5 of those to vote on are Filmation concepts. So you know what I mean? Like, that's thinking about it more now, it's more like, well, maybe they did really just want to get kind of like a priority list.
Makes sense. I thought it was funny. I every now and then I go on to Toy Frenzy and co-host there. And last week we were talking about this after we talked about it as well on our last episode. And I think I started something because now they want the collector more than any of those other choices. We talked about it on here, but I'm like, how is it that they didn't even bother to throw that as an option when they gave 3 horde options?
Yeah.
But the collector is nowhere to be seen yet. There's 2 or 3 distinct Filmation choices. So I don't know. I've never been able to figure out how they handle the line because they've always made these decisions that, to me, I'm just like, okay, why would this be released before this? Or I don't know. I got nothing.
Or playing devil's advocate, maybe for some reason they feel that the collector is strong enough to be a retail release.
That actually I could agree with, because other than the Filmation Attack Track, I think the collector is probably one of the most wanted from Filmation that fans never got. So yeah.
I could even, people yell at me, tell me I'm wrong, but I would even posit that the collector is Skeletor's most recognizable vehicle. Even with it never having been made into a toy. Like, I mean, it's literally a skull-faced battleship. Like, you know what I mean? So, and it's in so many episodes of the cartoon, it's just synonymous with it, with Skeletor. Probably, I mean, for me, when I think Skeletor vehicles, it's like Landshark, Collector, and Roton, which we've gotten 2 of those already in the line. So, Yeah,
I mean, I always have my, my grumpiness and all that about Filmation, but even as a kid, if that would have came out, you could damn well be sure I would have bugged my mom for that one in particular. Like, I didn't get some of the later ones in the line in general, but that, if they would have put it out at any point during the original toy line, that would have been a yes, please. I will definitely have this. And it was the whole, you see it after school every freaking day, or just about. So then it's like, you feel like you are missing out by not having it. And fans have felt like that for 40 years at this point. So,
No, completely agree.
So hopefully, cross fingers for everybody that wants it. I hope it does happen. I hope you get it.
And for the Eternia's choice, I honestly hope it's Doom Tower. Like that is I voted Attack Track and Doom Tower. I really hope Doom Tower pulls it off. And that is the one that I will not be able to say no to. I will have to jump on there.
I almost wish I didn't say it last episode, but I almost wish that if they did Doom Tower, they came up with a way to come up with the other two sides to give it that extra that it always had on Filmation compared to it just being the tower.
Yeah.
I doubt they will, because it just seems to me like they'd go, well, why bother when you already have the main point? But it really looks anemic.
What if
compared to what we originally know from the cartoon?
Yeah. What if they did the tower as the playset, but then like a stretch goal would be like a backdrop or like just like walls, or basically that, you know, kind of. I mean, honestly, I'd even go for like a sturdy cardboard. You know what I mean? Like to kind of accentuate it, give you a little bit more background.
The thing that they've been doing with Origins is that whole, they have those bases on them now, and you can add to them.
Right, like Stridor. Stridor piece that attaches the wing, does all that.
Yeah, you could kind of combine them. I mean, this is the perfect example of just have it go onto a base and have the base have those parts to it, and just, you know, boom, good to go. You know, and just fill it out a little bit more. I agree. Like that one for me was like, wow, they're going there, because it's always been more iconic looking than the place that we had. But looking at it still, I'm like, it looks really anemic. It almost makes me think of like the rocket ship in Transformers the movie with Cup and Hot Rod, without it having the rest of the pieces to it. So
I'd also like that would be cool. I'd still like to see it in relation to something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because right here, because even in this picture they shared here, like it is the smallest of the four. Like it's literally looks like it's thinner than Attack Track, which we know it can't be. You know what I mean? Like
it's all about scale. It's all about, you know, give us a figure at the bottom or somewhere.
So if that base is like as wide as that Toy Fright Zone looks, like that could be a pretty substantial thing. You know, it's all in relation right now.
Yeah.
Which I still maintain is purposeful, but that's just me.
You're not the only one. Let's put it that way. So you know, there's people that are on to you, Mattel, not just us. We started it, but there's others.
So we got that to look forward to, October 12th. And then next week, September 27th, just a little over a week, 8 days from today, Netflix is doing their Drop 1, which they say that they will be releasing trailers for Sonic Prime, Captain Laserhawk, Castlevania Nocturne, Blue Eye Samurai, Pluto, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, Masters of the Universe Revolution, and much more. So, they did release a Drop 1 trailer for the trailer, but that did I save yourself a minute and 13 seconds, guys. This, what I'm showing you, is literally the only time anything Masters of the Universe is shown. So, but looking forward to that. I'm guessing. I don't know now that I'm thinking about it, because I don't know about you, Sean, but in my feed the past couple days, probably because the drop's coming out, there's been all those clickbait articles where it's like, Revolution, release date, official details, and you click on it and they're like, yeah, we don't know when it's releasing, but it's probably going to be 2024. So, but the weird thing is, we still have those 2 scenes that were shown at Comic-Con that have never been officially released. feel like if it is going to be 2024, that it's too early for an actual trailer. So maybe they'll just be dropping those scenes. But then I also know that they've released, especially Master Universe, they've released stuff well before it was speculated that it was going to be released. So we might be closer than we think we are.
Possible. I mean, what the last? I'm trying to remember with Revelation. That one hit. Was it a month before it came out?
Maybe 6 weeks at the most.
6 weeks at the most.
It was 4 to 6 weeks. It wasn't long at all.
I just remember I was at my kids had a doctor's appointment the day it hit.
Yep.
And I was in the doctor's office trying to watch it and not worry about my kids. I was like, yeah, that's great. Wait, Man at Arms is saying something. You know, I was all in that mode at that day. But
nope, I was at work. I was still at the store then, so I was in the back room like, everybody leave me alone for 2 minutes.
So, I mean, I don't know. I figure when they were talking about like production schedules and stuff, I wouldn't figure that we were going to be getting it this year. And especially, again, I think you and I have talked about this before with the strikes going on and all that stuff. It seems a little weird that maybe this would be coming out, but I don't know.
Well, no, because it's done. Like they finished recording. So it was written, it was recorded, and now they're animating. That's how Netflix works. That's how it works. So everything's been recorded, everything's been written. All we're waiting on is animation, which we know is a good stage along because they got at least 2 completed scenes.
Yeah,
I think they pretty much animate kind of in order too. Like it's not like the old days where they're working on, you know what I mean? Like where they're like, we just have to get some episodes out. You know, now they're like, oh, we're just going to do this whole thing beginning to end. So, and that was the reason for that split originally in the first series, because the front half was complete animated. The second half was waiting on animation. So that was one of the reasons they decided to split it into 2 parts. But Revolution is only 4 episodes. It's half the length of Revelation was.
Mm-hmm.
So I still don't put 2023 out of the possibility in my mind. Now, definitely they could wait out of respect to the strike, but I don't see the strike actually affecting, you know, like we literally can't release it.
Well, I think, I don't know. I think there are other things that are coming out that they've been, like post-production and all that kind of stuff, if I remember right. So it might not have anything to do with it. And I think I heard somewhere, it might have been when Jesse and I went to see the Turtles movie. We were looking up like what can you do and not do, and voice acting actually is exempt from what they're striking about it because of the likenesses and the royalties or whatever. So I think it's a little bit different on that side of things. But I don't know. I mean, I'll be curious if all of a sudden in, you know, November, December, all of a sudden we get another the 4 episodes hitting Netflix. So
it'd be nice. It's interesting just looking at this list. It's interesting seeing Sonic Prime. I never watched it, but I heard like it was supposed to be like kind of a one-off, like its own kind of continuity. So it's interesting to see that coming back. I know it was a hit. Like I've heard lots of people love it. I think
my son is big. I've never seen him go through a show as fast as this. Once Sonic Prime, he found it first thing in the morning. He finished it by lunchtime, and he rewatched it before dinner. I mean, if anything Sonic related hits, my son is about like I am with Masters of the Universe or anything I love, where it's like he will jump on that, and that'll be the only thing he does all day until it's finished. And he loved it. First season, he was explaining parts to me because I sat down watching a few episodes, and I'm like, well, that's why did they do this? And he can explain to me the ins and outs of this show, and I'm like, at least you're paying attention. That's great. I'm glad that you're really enjoying this. But man, it gets into like alternate dimensions. there's like an evil version of Tails, and I'm like, I got nothing. Okay, I'm glad you love it, you know. And I was always a Mario kid growing up, so for me, it's like Sonic is all about him as far as I'm concerned. So I'm glad he loves it though. And then the Scott Pilgrim one surprised me. I didn't know there was going to be. I heard something about a Scott Pilgrim show of some sort. I think this is the one where they brought back the whole cast, maybe?
That's what I was looking up to get more information because I liked the movie was great. The graphic novel was phenomenal. And so I was just looking this up, and they got Michael Cera is going to be Scott Pilgrim. Johnny Simmons, Kieran Culkin, Satya Baba.
Brandon Routh, Chris Evans, everybody, and Brie Larson. That was the first time I ever saw Brie Larson in anything, and all of a sudden she blew up right after that. So.
Yeah, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Ramona.
Now, see that one, it'll be neck and neck for me with that and Revolution because I love the movie. Still feel it's underrated as hell. Freaking great. The creativity and the visuals alone were like pulling me into that. But on top of it, you're bringing back everybody from the movie, so it has that hey, it's like straddling that we're doing it in a different way, but we still have the people that made it great the first time. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and I think that's what really brought, because I watched the movie first, and then I went back and read the novel, but the casting in that was just freaking phenomenal.
I still, to this day, I love the whole thing with Brandon Routh saying he's a vegan, and then Thomas Jane showing up and no vegan powers.
Yeah. God, that's great.
What was that he said? Gelato isn't vegan. It's milk and eggs, bitch. Oh, I love it.
I can't tell though if it's gonna. I mean, it says it brings everybody back. I'm not sure if it's just an animated take on the original story, or if it's something else. If it's I mean, I think it sounds like it's just an animated retelling.
That if they do that might make it less attractive because all I heard was they were going to do an animated Scott Pilgrim, and are having everybody from the movie back again to voice their characters. But if that's what the more I think about it, I'm like, what do you do with that? Because he defeats them all by the end of the movie. I mean, spoilers for anyone who never saw it. He has to fight the League of Evil X's, and by the end of the movie, they're no concern to him. I'm not going to explain how he gets rid of them all. That's the brilliant part. You watch it for that.
I will say though,
they're curious.
There is a lot more in the novel than there was in the, just for time constraints. So if they're fleshing it out a bit more, or even they're doing more like an Invincible thing where they're taking the original, but they're like, how can we update this? How can we take care of some of the, issues, quote unquote? You know what I mean? There's still, even if they're doing that, there's still something interesting in that for me. As long as they present something new, I mean, we talked about ad nauseum ourselves. You can do so much more in a series than you can do in a movie. It just, you've got that time to flesh everything out.
No, I didn't even know they had Castlevania in their thing. So that goes to show you.
I've tried watching Castlevania, and it's not that I didn't like it. It just that there's nothing that really brought me. I think I watched the first season and part of the second season, and I don't know. I never kept on with it. I'll probably go back and finish it one of these days.
I remember it's beautifully animated. I mean, that's the Powerhouse animated it. Just Revelation and Revolution, but. For me, I tried watching it, and I got to I think I watched the whole first season, but then previous seasons after that, I don't it's on today, I'm gonna go check it out. I just usually I'm like, oh, it's another season, okay.
Yeah, same thing. I watched the first season. I watched pretty much all the way through, and it felt like it took a really long time for anything to happen. And it was and then it was one of those where it's at the end of the season, you're like, oh, that's what we're doing. And it's and that's the season. And it's
and that's it. Boom. Yep.
cool. Like it's kind of almost that like the superhero origin story to me now, where it's like we spend the whole movie and then that last shot is like him in the suit with the full powers, and then that's it. It's like,
well, that's it.
Killing me, guys.
For me, Castlevania, I grew up playing the first game. I never got into any games past the first game, though. And it wasn't out of me not liking it. It was me having, oh, the Turtles games are out. I really want the Turtles games. If I had to get anything, I wanted the Turtles games. And from that point on, it just became like I love the first one. The rest of them just never, ever were played or whatever. And so it's like it's one of those, I still remember that summer. There was a summer of Castlevania for me. And then after that, it was more just hit and miss on keeping up with anything related to that one. So
and the weird thing is for me, I don't know, it's like growing up, video games based on movies were cool to me. But like the ones that were just video games, I would never sit there and be like, this needs to be a movie. Like I know they came out with Super Mario Brothers as a movie when I was a kid, but I never was like playing Mario Brothers and like, man, I wish this was on the big screen.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like
when I was a kid and they said they were making a movie of it, I still remember going, how? Like,
right.
This is literally something that makes no sense to make into a movie. And then when I saw the movie, I remember sitting through it going, I think I need to be on some kind of an adult substance in order to understand what the crap is happening here, because the movie has nothing to do with the video game unless you have characters that are Luigi and Mario, and that's it. And what's funny is the movie from this summer has now turned the old one into something that they're replaying a lot more of, and I'm like, why? The new one pretty much hit the nail on the head. Keep going with that. The best thing was Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, and those poor guys were drunk through all of that shoot, from what I understand. Why would you even bother? It's such a weird movie.
But
it's one I'll actually try to watch again, I think, just to make sure I'm right. Not out of like, oh, I need to see it because I miss it. More like, is this really as bad as I remember it being?
I didn't hate it as a kid. I didn't love it either. And I have rewatched it, I don't say recently, but more recently than 94 whenever it dropped. But like it's not bad. It's not good either. Like it is. It's one of those movies where I was surprised by the internet hatred of it, because I'm like, it's not that bad of a movie, because that's what we're used to. We're used to these, kind of the same way, right? Like even though I love the video games based on movies, like they were shit. Licensed video games were garbage, but I got to play as Batman, or Turtles probably had the best ones. There were some good ones. But for the most part, the licensed movie video games were shit. And it is what it is. But I never sat there needing it. Like Mario was one of my favorite video games, but there was no reason to make it in a movie. And I'm going to throw a hot take here. The 2023 Super Mario Brothers, I watched it once, and it's kind of the same thing. I'm like, yeah, that was that. Like, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was. I'm like, the characters look like the video game now, but it's still not. I don't know. I think honestly, it was a little bit too much. Spoiler alerts. You've seen it, haven't you? I should.
Multiple times now, yes.
Maybe I need to watch it. But I just felt it was like too much. Like, to me, if you're gonna do Mario Brothers for a first time, you do Bowser captures Princess, Mario, throw Luigi in there if you want the buddy comedy, go save her. You know what I mean? And it was just a little, I don't know, it's just a little too much. Like you didn't need Donkey Kong, you didn't need, the carts, you didn't, like, I don't know, it just was. Like I said, I didn't hate it, I didn't love it either. I thought it looked great and everything. Obviously much better than Bob Hoskins and
John Leguizamo.
Thank you.
No problem.
But
and Dennis Hopper too. Dennis freaking Hopper.
Yeah.
As King Koopa in that one.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, Koopa bothered me. I'm like, why can't he just be an evil villain? Like, why we got to do this, like, romantic subplot thing? Like, I don't know. It was just, like I said, it just was. I'm just like, it's not great. It's not bad. It is a Mario Brothers movie to me.
It felt more legit than anything. I've tried watching the cartoon now. I never watched the cartoon as a kid because I couldn't get the cartoon in where I lived. And for me, it was just literally, I just sat there grinning from ear to ear watching it with my kids. And even my wife sat there and she's like, oh my God, this is fun. And I'm like, the fact that my wife can sit in the movie theater, all four of us, and she's even happy to see it was pretty surprising to me, number one. And then, I'll give it to you. Like the whole Bowser Princess Peach angle was very weird because I'm like, how is that supposed to work if it happens?
Yeah.
Granted, I knew it wasn't going to happen, but still, how is that supposed to work? And then for me, the only thing that I'd say is an issue was I really wished it would have just been Mario and Luigi together discovering the world. Like, because the minute that they veer off when they go into the warp zone, I guess that would technically be a warp zone. They get through the warp zone, but then they're separated while they're traveling. And like through the whole movie, my kids are like, I just want to give Luigi a hug. He's always scared through everything, and he barely has a chance to do anything until the end. He has a great moment with that, at least. But there was that part of me where I'm like, the poor guy deserves a little bit more cred than that. I mean, there were more people. I knew more people that were excited to play Luigi as a second player at times, or even play him in Mario 2 than they wanted to go to Mario half the time because he got less love. Mm-hmm. So, and in the movie, they just did him dirty like that again. So. Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, it just was. Thank you guys for tuning into Legends Mushroom.
Legends of Nintendo.
A hell of a podcast.
Nintendo. It's a cereal. Wow. I missed that one.
But real quick, Super Mario Brothers Super Show. So like early 2000s, I remember picking up the DVD of the complete Super Mario Brothers Super Show because same as you, I had never seen that show as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I'd seen maybe a couple episodes of Super Mario Brothers 3 when that cartoon was out, with the Koopalings and everything else, and didn't have live action. But I'd never seen the Super. So I'm like, and like either it was like Rhino or Shout, like they had it was like $15 for the entire set. I bought that, and I bought the Legend of Zelda cartoon series, and my God, those are bad.
Yeah. I mean,
so bad. But I watched them all. I bought that DVD. I'm watching them all.
I've seen a few episodes because I think it was on Netflix or something at one point, and my kids had it on just out of curiosity. And we would watch like maybe the first 2 episodes, and they go, I don't want to watch this anymore. I'm like, neither. Like, let's put something different. I'd say, honestly, I'd rather watch the Captain Lou bits that they did as the bookend parts more than I'd rather watch the show, because at least there you would have this like it's not going to be what the video game's about, but it's almost, here's a sitcom with Mario and Luigi, let's just run with it. That was more fun to watch than the actual animation bits where I'm sitting there going, how did that happen? What? It's like that was one of those where things off the screen would just show up to help the characters, and then they're like, yay, and then they do their thing, and you're like, that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. We're gonna get a lot of nasty comments on that, probably.
Last hot take on Mario, then I promise, guys, we'll get back to Master Universe. This one I don't think is a hot take. I think everyone will probably agree with me. Biggest video game disappointment in my childhood that I still stings to this day, because I was the guy that wanted to play as Luigi. I was, if 2 players, give me player 2. They came out with the game Mario is Missing, and I'm like, you're going to get to play as Luigi. You're going to get to save Mario. And then it turned out to be a freaking educational, like, reading and more where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, but not as fun type game. Yeah, if you don't know Mario is Missing, look it up. I'm like, this is what Luigi gets. Like I said, I'm thinking Mario is Missing. Cool, I get to be Luigi. I get to run through the Mushroom Kingdom and save Mario. No, it's like a point and click educational game.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I didn't even know that was a game, so there you go. That shows how much I've known about Nintendo for how long.
Yep. Oh, terrible. So I think that's all the news we had. So on to our main discussion here. It's been a hot minute, but we are finally back to the Mike Young Productions He-Man and the Masters of the Universe series. And today we're going to take a look at episode 21, Snake Pit. So this originally aired on March 29th of 2003. It was written by Stephen Melchin, directed, as always, by Gary Hartel. Chronologically, the previous episode was Buzz Off's Pride, and the episode after this was The Island. So, yeah, very...
It's a divisive time in the Masters community.
Very interesting placement there. So
yeah.
So Shawn, I know we can talk briefly. If you guys want to check out some of our back catalog, episode 1 of Legend, like literally episode 1, Legends of Grayskull. We talk in depth about how we got to Mike Young and everything, and we kind of do the beginning review, but I'm not going to lie, we didn't get as in-depth there as we wanted because we also kind of tied it in with all of our beginnings and everything else. So,
yeah.
But it's there. Obviously, I was watching day and date, even with the shuffle around, Toonami, Saturday, wherever they moved it to, I was watching and recording each episode because I was still in the times where you weren't guaranteed. You know, DVD releases were just starting to become a thing. VHS releases, you could usually get like anime and like popular series like Star Trek Next Generation, like big hit shows on VHS releases. But even then, you didn't get everything necessarily. So yeah, I was recording every episode just as my way of like, I'm not going to have this be like Filmation where I don't have any of the episodes. Like, I'm going to make sure I have all the episodes. Flash forward to where they're readily available. And this is streaming right now. Amazon Prime has it if you have that subscription, and YouTube has it on the Mattel Action channel.
Yeah.
Which is also why you cannot find a lot of our previous Mike Young production reviews on our YouTube channel because Mattel went through and hit us with a cease and desist.
They know us.
Back when they were getting ready to release the Mattel Action channel. So, but every episode is available audio, and this has just been a reminder to me that I need to get back and do some fancy editing to get those episodes back online. It's because we actually included clips. Anything where we included clips got taken down. So. But Shawn, what real quick, just to recap any new listeners we have who haven't been with us since episode 1 and who don't love us enough to go back and rewatch all of our episodes. How did you get into Mike Young? Were you day and date?
No, I absolutely not. I was living where we couldn't get cable, so Cartoon Network was a dream. I eventually moved out in the fall of 2002, and I do remember that at one point I was looking around at the channels and there was an episode of the 2000X show, and I'm like, ooh, I'd like to finally get a chance to watch this. And I ended up not being as wowed as I was because I've said this before, I'll say it again. I didn't know what this was going to mean because it was very rare to see something I loved as a kid come back that way. That was one of the first ones that I could think of where it legit, here is He-Man again, but it's a different version and we're going to do a whole new cartoon.
Yeah.
So I remember watching whatever episode it was and going like, oh, this isn't working for me. But then I went back a couple years later. YouTube, there was, I think it was Dark Child had them all on his or hers on their channel, and I started watching them from episode 1 on. And I felt like a complete idiot for missing out on this series because once it got running, I absolutely adore 2000X. It's still right up there as my favorite, and CGI is really close second, like extremely close second. So
I like it. So this is Snake Pit. Let's go through this. Sorry, got distracted there for a moment. All right, so this opens up. Real quick. This is one, obviously, that was already attracting lots of attention. When the series started, Cartoon Network listed all the episode titles on their website and had little one-liners. And I was trying to remember today. I'm pretty sure we knew this was going to be a Kobra Khan and Zodak episode. I wish there was a way to find because it was usually just his little one-word description of the episodes, and they didn't spoil everything. So obviously fans were wild with speculation. Just coming off Buzz Off's Pride, which, like we said, was not necessarily a great episode. So
it is one that I enjoy personally, but other people have not enjoyed it, and each their own.
Yep. But yeah, so it just kind of, excuse me. But we were definitely in that day and age. We were definitely going into it with minimal information. So when stuff happens later in the episode, there was definitely some shock and awe.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So we open up. It's nighttime at the Royal Palace. We get a nice rear shot of the palace. I always love when you do it's so easy to just take your traditional palace, truck in on it, but whenever they flip things a little bit, that's always fun.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 2 guards playing the Eternian version of chess, and a little lizard creature sneaks in and helps break Kobra Khan out of jail, and he heads to Snake Mountain. Sean, what do you think about this opening?
The opening amused me because I know one of the complaints that people have about the 2000X show in general is you're going to hear a twirling sound quite a lot when there's moments. And what did amuse me is I don't know if they did it intentionally, but one of the guards, when Kobra Khan gets out of the prison, he actually does the twirling, and that's what gets him in trouble, which amused the heck out of me. Honestly, it's been so long since we've talked 2000X. It's been so long since I've even sat down to watch this, though, that it did amuse me to go, it feels like coming home to see these guards and Kobra Khan and all this again. But yeah, it's really cool. He has his little lizard guy help break him out, and I love that the emergency button is this table basically.
Yeah.
I don't know the best way to describe it, but I love that it's basically bam, and then the table just starts lighting up and everything. Mm-hmm. I was like, if there was ever a fail-safe of a way to know that something is going to happen, an alarm is going to be sound, that would be it. Because either a guard could hit it by getting thrown into it, or he can hit the hell out of it like the guy does. So that was a good job on Duncan's part to make sure that was very easily accessible.
Yeah, I always like what they did in Mike Young. Obviously getting away from the necessary limited animation of filmation, it allowed them to do these things where you could let these moments breathe a little bit, where you could have these guards feeling natural, playing a game. You know, it's just another night. They're so used to a routine. And then even after Kobra Khan escapes through the sewers, you know, actually seeing the search party, all the sky sleds, you know, going out, sweeping the area with lights, you know, Kobra Khan abducting one of them to take the Snake Mountain. Like, it just, and Kobra Khan's redesign. I remember seeing that for the first time. It's one of those, you know, overall, I liked all of the redesigns, but his is definitely one where it's like he jumps out. Even they do the new toy thing of saying his name a lot, but the second he comes out, any of us that had grown up on the property are like, that's Kobra Khan.
Yeah,
you know, no ifs, ands, or buts. But I've always loved this look of him. I like him the more. You know, he's kind of like Buzz Off. They made him a little leaner, you know, a little tighter, but he looks dangerous as hell. You know, they got that Hannibal Lecter mask mouth guard. Yeah, it's just he's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and what you're saying about the design, something that I like about that as they get into the Snakemen episodes further, is he looks so petite later on.
Yeah.
Because the other Snakemen are so much bigger or wider or whatever, and he just looks so diminutive, which I like too, because that plays up how they view him.
Yep.
On top of it, it's like that pecking order in the way that they look at it, and so I dug that maybe they put that into the character design as well, to make sure he looked as less menacing compared to the bigger guys out there later on.
Yeah, the whole descendant type thing that, like you said, definitely comes into play second season a lot more than anything else. But yeah, so we join up. Kobra Khan heads to Snake Mountain and is captured by Merman and Too Bad. And taken in to Skeletor, who he swears loyalty to. He'll join. He tells Skeletor he wants revenge on the Eternians for imprisoning him, and that he'll tell Skeletor all sorts of secrets about how to get in and out of the palace, which he did do pretty effortlessly once he was out of his cage. So I mean, he's formidable. He's smart, and he's sneaky. Because he's definitely got some ulterior motives. He's poking around Snake Mountain. He's, you know, he's asking Skeletor if he even knows where some of these passageways go. Yeah. Which I really like this. So this interaction with him and the evil warriors, probably one of my biggest complaints about it is that I would have liked Kobra Khan to be a double agent a little bit longer. Like, that's probably one of my few complaints. I kind of wish, like, this whole joining up had been a previous episode. And then, like, you know what I mean? Because I really like him in the where he's kind of, like, testing the water. They're walking down the hallway. He's like, do you know where that goes? You know?
Where do those stairs go?
Yeah.
And I love the Beastman's like, none of your business. Like, number one, I doubt he even knows.
Right.
But mostly the, you know... Skeletor only needs you for this. Therefore, why do you need this information?
Yep.
I like that.
And it's that thing. You're like, does even Skeletor know? And I think it puts some doubt in Skeletor. Like, wait, how much do I know about my own fortress? You know what I mean?
And I do like that there is a payoff of that later in the series for anybody who wants to check it out. There is some stuff going on here where it's like Skeletor has shacked up here, but it doesn't mean he knows the entire place like the back of his hand, which I love. It's almost, it is that feeling of he just went to the one place where he could make a home out of it the best that he could, but then the historical significance puts Kobra Khan at a completely different advantage in this situation. So yeah,
exactly. It's that world building and just a couple scenes, very little, you know, and it's just like, but you're just getting this whole thing. We cut back to the Royal Palace. We've got Man-at-Arms, Adam, and Tila talking about the Snakemen. Like, just boom, right out here. You know, I mean, it blew my mind. I know, regardless of me not being able to remember exactly what the Cartoon Network, like, tag for this episode was, I know that it was never explicitly stated that the Snakemen were going to be a part of this episode. I mean, you can speculate all you want, Snake Pit, Kobra Khan, and everything.
Yeah.
But even then, if you go back to the vintage material, Kobra Khan was, once the Snakemen arrived, Kobra Khan was more the dual agent in that he was serving Skeletor, spying on King Hiss.
Yeah.
So like that, like Kobra Khan, the character was around long before the Snakemen were introduced vintage. So it's one of those things where it's like anything's up for grabs here, but even knowing Kobra Khan's in the episode, that didn't necessarily tell you like, oh, the Snakemen are going to be here.
Yep.
Whereas I think nowadays it's the opposite. Like if Kobra Khan's there, the Snakemen are going to be with him.
Yeah.
Which we could debate back and forth. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. But so, and I just love this interaction where, you know, Adam's like, oh, you know, I thought
they were children's stories. They're basically urban legends and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you don't go to bed, the Snakemen will eat you, which I try on my kids.
I like that Orko even knows that one. I mean, granted, the history of Eternia in this, it's like it's there from how far in the past, but I do like that even Orko knows. Well, that's how they get the kids to go to bed. If you don't go to bed, the Snakemen will eat you. And he has the snake puppets, and he's like, you know, playing around with them and all that. And that's one of those times where I'm like, Orko really does come in handy because he knows those kind of things when it comes to like the kitty, the rhymes, the nursery rhymes, the children's stories and stuff like that.
That's I think he's a court jester. He's entertained the kids. Exactly. He's told these stories. He's learned, you know, but we're treated to the real history of the Snakemen and how they were a force that almost enslaved Eternia, and they were finally defeated by Zodak and the elders working together and trapping them in a timeless prison. This is the first time we see the Snake Mountain with the 3 heads, you know, when we see the ancient Snake Mountain. Yeah. I mean, just stuff like this was just blowing my mind watching this for the first time. These concepts that we never thought about before, you know.
That one moment had me more invested in Zodak than anything anyone has ever done with a character ever. Because in my own head, I'm like, okay, obviously the Snakemen are before Adam's time by a bunch. Yep. And then on top of that, you have, Zodak is now one of the go-to guys if there's a He-Man level problem, along with the elders. There's a part of me that almost wishes that there could have been more stories talking about that and showing, okay, that's why there is a He-Man.
Hang on, I'll be right. Sorry about that. You were saying?
It just made me really excited to imagine, like, we're dealing with an Eternia where even if He-Man's not around, I'm invested in finding out more about things that happened because of how the Mike Young Productions version does do that sort of stuff. So I would have been thrilled to have like an episode where it would have been Zodak meeting with the elders to discuss how do we defeat these guys. You know, like that kind of stuff would have been like icing on the cake for me to make me go, I like Zodak now. You're making characters that never were on the radar for me valid. That's amazing. You know?
Yep. Yeah, and just the seeing King Hiss, they obstruct his face for some reason. I guess Mattel hadn't signed off on the final design, but we still get a pretty good shot of him. It's pretty much everything except for the face. Which honestly, now thinking about it, they might have been bouncing back and forth because the final new King Hiss is definitely vastly different from the face of the vintage King Hiss. Yep. So that could have been a sticking point where they're like, maybe we want it more vintage or maybe not, you know, one side or the other. But, you know, in the armies of Snakemen, right? Yeah. Like just all these reptilian warriors marching into battle and being sucked into this void. You know, it's another, like Snakemen were always the little faction. They were, you know, most of the stuff I remember was literally King Hiss, Ratlor, and Tongue Lasher. like three dudes trying to cause trouble.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say too, one of the things about the statement that bugs me is it did signal in Vintage and even in 2000X, this is as far as you're getting. Like, this is the end of the road once we hit these guys, which is part of why it bugged me. Especially knowing I didn't like them in the Vintage. Then when I get to 2000X, they heralded the end of the series because it didn't go further. And it's like, but like when you see how they work, this is so much more of an interesting dynamic for the Snakemen for me versus here's a couple guys that want to cause trouble and all that kind of crap.
Right, you're calling yourself a king. You've got two lackeys, dude.
Yeah, it's it's like, I bet he's naked too. Oh shit, he's got snakes. That's all he's got.
So we get all the backstory, and the Masters set off to find Zodak to ask for his help. Makes sense. He's the guy who was there.
Yep.
Meanwhile, back at Snake Mountain, Kobra Khan has gone over blueprints of the palace with Skeletor, shown him some secrets, and while Skeletor's coming up with a game plan to break into the palace, Kobra Khan sneaks off for his own motives to find the secret passageway to the void and to open it up. I'm kind of sad thinking about the episodes that come that we never got like payoff with this. So did Kobra Khan just feed him a bunch of bowl? Like, it seems like they should have come back. Like, Skeletor still has seemingly good intel, and yet we never get like there should have been an episode coming up where like he's got this secret way into the palace, or you know what I mean? Like, it just would have been a nice payoff to that.
Like the best that I can do at this point is think, okay, when Snake Mountain comes alive and it basically sucks Skeletor and all of the evil warriors.
I haven't watched season 2 yet.
I know you have. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't, though. But there is this whole thing of Skeletor basically not being involved in the end of the series because they didn't think that they were going to get canceled.
Yeah.
That then makes me go, that would have been kind of cool to go, he knew some of this stuff because of this episode. Maybe when he comes back, maybe it's doing something like that. Yeah. That would have been a hell of a way to go. He's in the freaking royal palace. How the hell did that happen? Or whatever. And it's like he can figure it out because he's following the stuff that he learned in this episode. That, like you said, the payoff of that would have been a hell of a problem for the heroes, and it would have been a great story to have him like reclaim things.
Yeah,
because they don't know where he's coming from.
And that's usually the kind of stuff that Mike Young did. So maybe it was in the plans for that back half of season 2 that we never got because, like they said, episode 1, Skeletor didn't know about Castle Grayskull. Like it was a few episodes in before that,
and I still love that about it too. He's focused so much on one thing that he finds out, the power's from there.
Yep.
And I love that even everybody, even him, is like, that means nothing. It's just this wasted castle, whatever. It's like, love it.
Yep. So while Kobra Khan's finding his passageways, the Masters find Zodak and try and convince him to help them. He declines their help. He says, "Don't you worry, I've got this." He sits on his chair and he takes off. I love that they updated the chair. Like that's because that was Filmation Zodak. That was him riding through the cosmos, seeing all, blah blah blah. Like this is a very different character, and I like them separate but equal. But it's just that nice little nod where they're like, well, we have to make him travel. We might as well give him the cool Metron type chair.
Yeah. For me, the coolest part, I mean, we already got to see him with the elders earlier, like I was talking about. But from where I stand, Zodak has always been one of these characters that he's literally sitting there and just watching how it plays out. And he's okay, one side can't get more than the other. It's almost like a parent, like that. That's where it got weird for me with that figure as a kid. Like, he's got a blaster, but literally he's supposed to watch both sides and make sure that one doesn't come out too far over the other one, because you got to have a balance. And in this case, it's like, how cool is it? It's the first time somebody says, "Hey, there's trouble, Zodak," and Zodak's like, "I got this," and he takes his staff and he puts his helmet on and he's off to the races. There's a part of me going like, I want to go with him. Like, I got to see what this is going to be about now. This is so freaking cool.
Yeah, and this the backstory, he fought the Snakemen. He lost his brother to the Snakemen. We'll find out more detail about that in season 2. But just the fact that, King Hiss killed his brother, and essentially he has sat on the sideline since then. He helped steal the Snakemen away. And then he's like, "I'm good. I'm just gonna." His retreat in the Mystic Mountains got a little pagoda on top of a cliff, and he meditates and everything.
Many petties.
And the only thing that brings him back into action is, hey, Kobra Khan's trying to free the Snakemen. And then all of a sudden, all this stuff is like, and then he's like, "No, I'm going." So it's still. I like that. It's still kind of that thing where it's like, you don't question why he hasn't been here the whole time. Mm-hmm. Like, he fought his war. He retired. Like, he made his peace. And now he realizes it's not over.
Mm-hmm.
And that, again, will lend more to season 2.
Yeah, after that, or if it's not over, it's the whole, it's starting up again, in that way. But either way, it's interesting. And I like, I at first, like, thinking about this scene, I'm like, it is weird to think he doesn't know that happens, but this is not the Zodak that we know. Right. So it is like, it's this weird tightrope for me of like, I have all of my prejudices previously about Zodak, but this one's proving me completely wrong on every level. And I do like that someone else has to come to him and like warn him, and because of his history, it's like, oh, I got this, like it's. I get a kick out of that.
One thing I do want to point out, as you know, I watched all these episodes day and date with my friends, and the scene, you mentioned it, where he summons his staff off the wall, and we speculated so hard about that sword hanging on the wall there. Mm-hmm. That very Prince Adam-esque power sword hanging on the wall. And that's one of the things my friends were convinced that was Adora's sword. That was a sword of protection, and that Zodak had been hanging on to it, and that was going to come into play down the road when Adora showed up. And I mean, I can't argue with that. I didn't think that they would go that route, that far of a deviation. But at the same time, I'm looking at it going like, yeah, I could see that as Adora's version of the sword, because one of the things that they did in this series is, and I love it, not only was there the big size change between Adam and He-Man, but the power sword changed. It changed size, and the hilt changed significantly. Like, it wasn't
activates.
It wasn't even just like a shrunk down version, which I like that as well. And they did things like this where they included similar looking swords. Like, you don't have to do that kind of stuff. But they're sitting there as the creators and the writers and going like, hey, we need to make this so, like we say, like, why doesn't everybody, like, Adam has a green tiger, He-Man has a green tiger. Like, okay, so to me, you got to make green tigers more of a thing in this world. Like, it can't be a one-off. Same with the power sword. Like, okay, Adam has this sword, He-Man has this sword, nobody else has a sword like this, but they did a good job in this series where they created this weaponry to look similar. Like, there is like all kind of European swords, you can kind of see how they evolved from each other. Like, it's the same kind of thing. Like, that's just the extra work that Mike Young put in that you don't have to, but it really helps the world building when you do.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, I kind of dig that they don't have all of their eggs in one place because,
Yeah.
like, I mean, we do have the problem later on in the series with the sorceress, which we won't get into because I already spoiled enough. But there is some stuff going on where it's like,
Yeah.
if you had everything all in Grayskull that way, and even if you had it hidden well enough, it's still like either then it's lost to time, or someone can get it one way or the other. And so having, if that is the sort of protection, it's kind of cool to go, okay, Zodak at least has access to that, and he could give it to her, and maybe it would be more of like a mystical sword versus how the power sword works or something too, because like even Filmation always had this sword could transform into whatever. So maybe it would have like a mystical element of it, kind of like Zodak with his powers in this version.
All right, here we go. Thanks, Nick, for inspiring or coming up with this thought, 20 years ago when we watched it. Now we're spitballing our season 3 again.
Yep, there you
go. All
go.
right, so Filmation Zodak was all about the balance in the cosmos. So who better to give the other sword to?
Yep.
To keep the balance than to, hey, Grayskull, you got 2 swords here. How can we or the elders at that point? Hey, there's 2 swords. How do we trust you? All right, you take this one. And that's part of his isolation, even. And then Adora comes into the picture as a force captain. She defects from the Horde, but like her mind's messed up. I mean, years of brainwashing, Horde training, Shadow Weaver, like, so Zodak takes her, and Zodak becomes her man at arms, like training her, teaching her, meditation.
I mean,
I've got all my issues with the Snakemen that almost led to the fall of Eternia. You've got your issues with the Horde. Who better to show you how to defeat those demons than someone who's walked it? Oh my God, Shawn, we got season.
There you go. And on top of that, on the original, on the Filmation show, she could heal with her powers, and so mystical. It works for me on that level in general. It's like, his like the sword of power literally is he is able to become so powerful he can fight like against Snake Mountain later on, which is one of the coolest moments. So it's like that's all well and good, but then she could come in from the mystical aspect of it, and it's like they're a well-rounded team if they have to work together then in that way. So and like you said, it also would help her to fight off Shadow Weaver's spells, to program her to be who she is. There's a ton of reasons why, if that is what it is, it does make sense completely. I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Nick. Thank you.
I feel dumb. I didn't even see it. I was like, there's a staff. Didn't even see the sword. Couple areas down. No,
like I said, if Nick and my buddies hadn't pointed it out 20 years ago, I wouldn't have even brought it up now. Other than, like I said, like I know even at one point Randor uses a similar sword to the Sword of Power, like kind of similar in design, like that kind of stuff I noticed. But I would have never went there with my prejudiced mind about where the story, quote unquote, should go. You know what I mean? Like I would have never come up with any of this for Adora on my own. I would have been too Filmation minded.
Yeah, and
that's the thing. We talked about, like, sometimes these guys, like my buddies, they remembered He-Man, but they didn't live it like I did. Like they mainly watched it because that's what I watched, and I watched Transformers because that's like it was that whole block of stuff. Nick was more into Transformers, so we watched the reboot Transformers that was at that time. Not Energon. Maybe it was Energon. I can't remember now. But so it was just one of those things. So like sometimes having that mind free of the past actually, helps the creative side. We've had that discussion before.
Sure.
But back to the actual episode. So Zodak flies off. The Masters figure he's gonna need their help regardless of what he thinks, and they take off after him. Kobra Khan is successful in finding the void, and he prepares to open it up and let the Snakemen free. Excuse me. While Zodak marches his way right into Snake Mountain. He doesn't even try anything. And Man-Arms just throughout, they kind of try and justify his powers with a line that he has the power to identify enemies' weaknesses, which whatever that means. But what he ends up doing is blasting Evelyn's own spell against her as all the evil warriors fight him and pinning all of them, including Skeletor, against the wall. And he goes to confront Kobra Khan.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to talk about an entrance?
Yeah,
that's a hell of a way to just. There he is.
And it's floating. He doesn't even walk. He's literally floating through the air. Those glowing tattoos, full strength. Like he is just, he's ticked. He's ready to go. He's got all this power saved up over the last millennia, and he is ready just to blow it all over the place.
Absolutely. And I am a fan of this moment because it shows where he is power-wise for me. He can literally take down everybody in Snake Mountain with just one move. That makes me automatically go, I really want to team up with him and He-Man doing stuff then.
Yeah.
Because we've seen it a few times on 2000X where He-Man gets to really like flex his muscles against Skeletor's warriors. And it's really fun to watch. But when you have a guy that can just do one move and knock them all out, I want him on my team.
As he goes to confront Kobra Khan, the portal is opened, which I was shocked at when this first aired. And we see army of Snakemen coming out along with General Ratlore. So we get to actually see the updated version of Ratlore. Like Shawn said earlier, he is a giant, hulking, draconian-type beast with a vicious rattle and that quick strike neck we know and love. Meanwhile, the Masters enter into Snake Mountain and find all of the evil warriors except Skeletor pinned to the wall as they hustle after Zodak. All of our forces meet up in the Void Room. Everybody's fighting. Kobra Khan uses his venom. I love that look when he's got the hood out and the venom squirting, and such a great redesign. Skeletor interrupts, knocks He-Man into the void. I forgot. Sorry. That's actually, here's my biggest nitpick of the episode. So when the Masters first get there, we literally still have Adam. With all the threats that we're facing. Yeah. We still have Adam, and he pretends to get hit by Kobra Khan's venom and runs off blinded. And finally transforms into He-Man. I gotta say, honestly, I didn't even need a transformation in this episode. If there's one episode you don't need a transformation in, this is it. I think it should have been He-Man from the jump. Man-Arms Workshop, Kobra Khan's escaped, He-Man shows up, Teela shows up. What are we doing, Duncan?
That could have worked. When I was watching it earlier, I actually was like, we're this far into the episode and there's no transformation, which blew my mind. So we're kind of on the same level. But the one thing I was thinking, which I don't think it would have worked now, the more I think about it, is, like you said, Skeletor manages to throw He-Man into the void. Yeah. It might have been interesting if Adam got thrown into the void, but then he had to turn into He-Man, but then that would give it completely away because He-Man's coming to the void later on.
No, even if it had been after Zodak took off and, Man-Arms and Teela are like, Adam, find He-Man. We're going after Zodak. You've got, yes, Teela's there, which is an obstacle, but you have Man-at-Arms there to help you out who knows your secret. Like, I don't know, it was a really late He-Man transformation. Yeah. Like, dude, we're dealing with some stuff here. Like, if this doesn't need He-Man, I don't know what does. Like, we brought no other Masters with us. Yeah. So that's probably my biggest complaint of the episode. It's minor overall, but it's just like, I am just sitting there going like, why are we still with Adam? No offense, Adam, I love you, but like, meanwhile, all right, I'll spoil. Once we get to season 2, Rise of the Snakemen, It's literally Sorceress waking Adam up and going, Adam, we need He-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yep.
But this time it's fine. Adam, you go ahead.
Yeah. At least he's on the premises. It's not like he's back at the Royal Palace just fishing or whatever.
No, yeah, I know. It was a really weird choice when you have all these opportunities to, Adam get He-Man back when it was safer.
I completely agree though, because like I said, when we got into the fight between Kobra Khan and Zodak,
yeah,
I was like, okay, Adam showed up. He really hasn't transformed yet? Like, we're getting close to the end of the episode, and they're playing it kind of loose with the transformation. Even with this show, there was always like this, it was more of a story point than it was in a, like in Filmation, it was just a given. You needed that moment because the kids would get pumped. Yep. In this show, it is a lot more, we're going to save it until we actually need it versus it making like the cheering hurrah moment kind of a thing. And there's
really good episodes where like there is a legitimate obstacle as to why he can't transform. But to me, like just Tila being there, like that's not good enough. Like he needed to find a way before that. Just logically. But yeah, we got Zodak versus Kobra Khan. We got Man-at-Arms. We got Snakemen. We got Rattler. Like I said, once He-Man shows up, like Shawn said, he's chasing Kobra Khan all around. They're jumping from pillar to pillar, and that's when Skeletor takes the opportunity to knock him into the void. I like Skeletor here. He's like, and he's on it. He's like, yeah, you betrayed me, but I can take out He-Man. Yeah, like and Zodak goes in to help He-Man in the void, and they come face to Shadow with King Hiss. We see him transform into snake form in Shadow. Again, I'm sure we were waiting for licensor approval. And Zodak is ready to stay. He tells He-Man to get out, close the void, and he's going to stay and finish this. But He-Man won't let him, and Zodak relents. They jump back up with the combined might of Zodak's staff and He-Man's power sword. They seal the void, putting almost all the Snakemen back. Rattler is able to escape with Kobra Khan, and they vow that they will free King Hiss. Meanwhile, Skeletor realizes this has all been way too much of a fuss, and he's going to bed. While vowing that someday they will meet again. And He-Man is sure that will happen.
Yeah.
Where we finish up with a shot of Zodak back at the Royal Palace. Why we went all the way back to the Royal Palace? It's got to be a huge detour for Zodak.
I was thinking that.
But where he tries to apologize and He-Man delivers the moral lesson that we will always need help. He-Man, man.
And on a personal level, that moral amused the hell out of me because of how yesterday worked out for me. I went outside, and apparently a truck had apparently gone like 40 to 50 miles an hour through my neighborhood yesterday afternoon after my daughter got home, and ripped a huge branch off of a tree on my near my property, and all of a sudden it's on the road. And all these cars are trying to get around it, and I was standing there about to. I'm like, okay, do I grab it myself? What? This guy pulls around and he gets out of his car, and I'm literally wearing my 2000X He-Man shirt on top of this, which amused me. and he goes, "Would you like some help?" And I'm like, "Sure." And we both pull it off to the side, and I'm like, "I literally lived that yesterday." And you know what, He-Man? You're darn right. It isn't a bad thing to get help sometimes. So it just was like, here's this little bow on top of it all for you, Shawn. There you go.
And then I don't know if yours, where you watch it, but I watch on Amazon Prime, which does have the moral segments attached.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. I watched it on YouTube, and that's the moral with him lifting the tree, but then all the other masters are back there lifting the other part with him. And I'm like,
when it originally aired on Cartoon Network, they did not have the moral segments, but pretty much every rerun since the initial airing has had them intact. They made them. Cartoon Network just decided not to air them on the first run through because they felt it aged down the show. So, But yeah, so yeah, lots of like I said, lots of things we didn't even mention because it didn't really pay much to the story. We get our first glimpse of Webstor in the shadows. He sees Kobra Khan sneaking through, and I have to imagine that's how Skeletor finds where to go. It's never explicitly said, but that's what I've always done. And in the prison in the beginning, we see a tiny creature who, if you watch through the credits, like we all did back in 2003, you will see his name was Oedipus, which quickly speculated that that was going to become Stinkor. And sure enough, 2 episodes from now in The Sweet Smell of Victory, he absolutely will. Spoiler alert.
Which is a freaking great episode. I love that episode.
So yeah, so we got lots of lore, lots of history.
Yep.
Zodak, Kobra Khan, Webstor, Oedipus, Snakemen, King Hiss, Rat Lore. I mean, this was one of the best reviewed episodes back in the day. I'd have to say it's still one of the best episodes of the series to this date. So much so that the ratings were so incredibly high for this episode. And the reception was so great that this episode alone decided the course of season 2 following the Snakemen storyline that it ended up doing.
Yay.
One day we'll get more into season 2. I don't think I'm going to get Shawn to review every episode of season 2, but I think we could probably do like an overall, feelings about the Snakemen.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's a big discussion, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. No, we need to restart and go back in time to start that discussion right now.
Yes.
But I mean, the thing, like, I still have my hangups with certain elements on Mike Young that it will never go away completely. Like, I've found them endearing the older I get. Yeah. One of them is the transformation sequence to this day is not the best ever. I like the ones nowadays, like Revelation, I thought actually was very well done compared to what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But the CGI one, I was like, it's okay, but it's like too much almost, depending if they give it the time or whatever. But this one, I remember still to this day looking at that and going, this is how they're doing this? Because Filmation every day of the week knocked it out of the park. Mike Young had a whole different way of doing it, but when you bring me a show that introduces the Snakemen in a way where they literally look like nightmare terrifying, and like this is a problem, and it really lets you see what that could end up being when you're rebooting a character like Zodak and turning him into a man of action, this mystical shaman who also is a warrior. Holy shit, like this is good stuff, and it's making the stuff that we knew as kids turn into something where now it's a different way of looking at it, and you can enjoy one or the other or both, whichever way you want to go.
No, I completely agree. It's a great reintroduction to these classic characters, present them in new ways. I was in love with the look of Rat Lore from the second he jumped onto the screen. He was menacing. He was a threat. And then, like I said, just the presence of mind to leave that open-ended the way they did. Not Kobra Khan and Rat Lore get away like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're first watching this, me back in 2003, you shortly thereafter, like
a couple years later, yeah.
I'm sitting there going like, okay, there is the void and it has a same. I'm like, there's no way they're opening the void in this episode. We're just going to get there and He-Man's going to stop them.
Yep.
Oh, they open the void.
Yeah.
Oh, they make it out. Well, everyone's going to go back in at the end of it. No, Rat Lore stayed out. Like, that kind of stuff didn't happen. You reset everything. Like, this stuff didn't continue on. Like, so it just is well written, well executed. And it's boom, boom, boom. I mean, once it goes, it doesn't stop.
Yep.
I found it interesting, though. They did mention the sorceress a couple times, but they never actually showed her. And that was kind of weird for me. I'm like, why do they? Like, Man-Arms is like, oh, the sorceress told us and everything. I know He-Man says the sorceress told me when he makes his entrance just to explain him being there.
Yeah.
I'm talking more about Man-at-Arms, like, the sorceress sent us to you. It's like, we didn't actually see her at all. I don't know, just another one of those. I don't know if there was maybe a scene cut in there. Or or what, but it's just I got a couple little things like that. But overall, on our rating of Power Swords, 3 is the absolute best, 2 is good, 1 is all right. We got Zodak right down the middle. That's Filmation Zodak with a C.
Yep.
And then, of course, we got 1 Havoc staff bad, 2 Havoc staffs worse, 3 Havoc staffs is the absolute good. I got to go a solid 2 Power Swords on this one. The action, all the characters, the history, the mystery, the magic, and mythology that is shown in this episode gives it a solid 2 rating for me.
Damn it. I mean, we're doing it again. I was going the same way too, because the new perspectives on things that I wasn't a fan of as a kid, now I'm actually engaged in these things, and it is cool to think, okay, now they're setting the stage to tell a bigger story about the history of Eternia, and the fact that here's this menace that is literally like a children's rhyme, and now it's the possibility of it being a bigger problem. It's pretty cool. I was wondering if I could knock it down to 1, but I feel like that's undermining it. I got to go with 2.
I'd like to go higher, but there's just those little bits and pieces for me that I'm just like, like one more edit through, I think would have knocked this up to a 3 for me. And that ending scene with Zodak, like that was so either don't do it or do it right there. Like I don't know why we needed the jump back to the palace. Like
I thought the exact same thing. It was almost like, hey, quick, let's do a nice little like life touch shot at the end of this where we're in a safe place, but now we can have our conversation. Like,
and I probably honestly would have liked it to be a bit more ambiguous, especially 2020 hindsight, knowing where they go with it. Like Zodak seems pretty happy and pleased with the outcome here. I would have liked, maybe if he, He-Man's like, hey, he's like, thank you. He-Man's like, hey, we're always here if we need you. And he just kind of takes off. You know what I mean? Like maybe leaving him a little bit more. Granted, I'm sure they didn't know exactly where they were going to go with him, but like leaving him a little bit more stoic, like he had been in all the rest of the episode, kind of would have set it up a bit more for what is to come. Whereas here, it's like, no, we're buddies, handshake and all that.
I agree. I mean, the only thing about that, and I can't remember how it was going with the episodes previously and after it. I mean, you said what episodes they were, but it wasn't until season 2 where they were legit having to start going across Eternia and build the alliance that Randor wants to build. So it's like having the way that He-Man says it at the end almost feels like he wants Zodak to be a part of that alliance for Randor, but really it's more, hey, I hope we can count on you in the future. And it would have been kind of better to have Zodak just, instead of doing the whole alone or whatever he says, have him go, we'll see, or something, and just leave it at that, where it's like, you could see he's a little more open-minded, but it's very much like on his own terms versus, like the heroes would help him at a moment's notice, but he'll help when he decides to help.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of more in line with our Filmation Zodak, where like, I'm going to do what I want. If I want to help Skeletor, I'm going to help him. If I want to help He-Man, I'm going to help him. Like that. I see that more now. Watching it back in the day, it was definitely like, oh my God, this is an all new Zodak. But rewatching it now, I'm more like, no, they still kind of, made him his own. He just more proactive when he wants to be. So, yeah, phenomenal episode. Highly recommend it. And I really want to go watch Rise of the Snakemen parts 1 and 2. So
they got you. That's how they do it.
That's how they do it. All right, guys. We want to thank you for tuning in today. Let us know your thoughts on the Snake Pit below. Let us know what you're hoping for the Revolution trailer. And make sure to share, subscribe, listen to Shawn.
Also, let us know which of the vehicles or playsets you're hoping will be announced on the 12th as well.
Yep. You can find us on Facebook in the Legendati group, or you can message me or Shawn directly. We're pretty easy to find. There's also logpod85@gmail.com. Tony, I do have your email. We're not getting it today. Sorry, bud. next time. Yeah, like, share, subscribe. Get us over 1,000 already, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Help us out.
Please.
All right, guys. Until next time, stay away from snakes.
Oh, come on.